Okay, now to wrap up Chapter 5, we're going to have a more extended program here. We're going to create a Mad Lib game. Now, I don't know if Mad Libs are still popular. My kids love them, but I don't know how popular they still are. If you're not familiar with Mad Libs, what it does is it asks for the reader's help or the user's help in writing a story. In this case, our user will supply the name of a person, a plural noun, a number, and a verb, and the program will take all of this information and then use it to create a personalized story. Okay, we are going to be doing this in chunks here. This may end up being one of my longer videos again, but just bear with me through the different chunks. Now we're going to start off in our editor, and I will go ahead and save this as madlib.cpp. And our introductory comments will name the program and describe what it does. Now we have some includes. As always, we include IOStream, and since we know we're going to be working with a string, because we've already said that we're going to bring in a name, a plural noun, etc. So we include string, and then we will give a directive that we're using the std namespace. Now we're going to use functions here in order to collect the information from the user, and then to actually tell the story. So we will have two functions, because remember, we want to ask the user for the name of a person, a plural noun, a number, and a verb. Okay. So we need functions to obtain the name of a person, a plural noun, a verb, and a number. Name of a person, plural noun, verb. What do those all have in common? They're all strings. The number will be an integer. So what we know is that we need a function to collect strings. So we'll have a function prototype called askText. And then we want to send it as an argument the prompt that it should provide to the user, because we'll be using this particular function multiple times. Now we also need a function that asks for a number. And we'll go ahead and hold to that same pattern of sending the prompt as an argument. This is useful if, say we end up collecting multiple numbers. We can, in our function call, we can send the prompt to that function rather than writing the prompt into the function. Okay, we also need, remember, a function that will actually tell the story. So we'll do a void, and we are declaring this as a void because it won't actually return anything. It will just tell the story. So we have a void function called tellStory, and we will send it a string called name, a string called noun, a string, I'll do this by the book, an integer called number, and a string called body part, and then a string called verb. Okay. So when we call the tell story function, we will be sending it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different arguments. Okay, that's our initial setup. We've got our 3 function prototypes. We have our include files and our using directive. So now we can go ahead and open up our main function. We'll introduce the program. And give some brief instructions. Okay, now, even though we haven't written our functions yet, we have a rough idea of how those functions are going to be set up based on our function prototypes. So we can go ahead and declare our variables. We have a string called name, and that will be equal to whatever is returned from our ask text function, which we will send the prompt, please enter a name. Now we'll have another string called noun that's set equal to ask text, please enter a plural noun. We'll have an integer called number, which is set equal to ask number, now we're back to strings. We have a string called body part, set equal to ask text, please enter a body part. String verb equal to ask text, please enter a verb. And then finally, we'll call our tell story function, and we'll send it the name, the noun, the number, the body part, and the verb. Okay, this matches our declaration here. String name, string noun, integer number, string body part, string verb. That's the end of the main function, so we return 0. Now we're ready to go ahead and define our functions. And we only have 3. We start off with ask text, and the arguments that it receives are string prompt. So we'll declare a variable, string text. We won't set it to anything yet. We'll see out the prompt, which we send to the function as an argument. And now we'll see in whatever the user types into our text string variable and return text to our main function. Okay, now remember we had a problem, we identified a problem in assignment 3. This simple use of the cin only works with strings that have no white space in them, no tabs or spaces. So when a user is prompted for a body part, they can enter belly button without spaces. But if they enter medulla oblongata with spaces, it will cause a problem for the function. As I said, that before, there is a way to compensate for that, but that's beyond the scope of this course. If you figured it out, you did receive extra credit on that assignment, but we probably will not learn about that in this course itself. Dawson does not go into it in the book. It's something that I pulled in, and a couple of you identified exactly the way that I suggested to do it, using the getLine stream. Beyond the scope of this course, but if you figure out how to use it, you did get some extra credit for that. So that's our ask text function. Now we need our ask number function, which receives a string called prompt. We define a variable called num. We see out our prompt, and then we accept the user variable into our num variable, and we will return num to the main function. Okay, our last function is a more complicated one, and that is our tell story function, which, remember, it receives string name, string noun, an integer called number, another string called body part, and a string called verb. Now it's time to go ahead and tell the story. The famous explorer, and now we send out our name. Had nearly given up a lifelong quest to find the lost city of now. Okay, so far we have given the explorer's name, which the user input, and then we have a fictional city called the lost city of whatever plural noun the user inputs. Now notice I put a line return here, a new line here. If I don't put in new lines, the program, when it runs in a console, it'll just break to a new line wherever it has to. We want to keep our words together. We don't want to have a new line in the middle of a word. So we're going to artificially dictate how long our lines are going to be. Okay, so carrying on with our story, in nearly given up his quest to find the lost city of blanks, when one day the noun found the explorer. Surrounded by then a number of how many of the nouns are going to show up. A tear came to the explorer's body part. Now, this is the fun of Mad Libs, is the user doesn't know what the story is going to be until after they've already answered the questions. So we could have a tear coming to Jacob's elbow, for example. Body part. Now we'll have a new line. After all this time, the quest was finally over. And then the blank noun new line promptly devoured the explorer. The moral of the story: careful what you verb for. And that is the end of our tell story function. So we'll save it and compile it. Looks like I have an error on or about line 55. Yep, line 54. I forgot a semicolon. Type that and try again. There we go. Now we'll run it. So it says, welcome to Mad Lib. Answer the following questions to help create a new story. Please enter a name, plural noun, apples, number 6, body parts, knee, verb, watch. Okay, so our story. You know what? I'm going to add a new line here because my prompt showing up right after that annoys me. And we'll do it again. Susan, apples, 6, knee, watch. So our story. The famous explorer Susan had nearly given up a lifelong quest to find the lost city of apples when one day the apples found the explorer. Surrounded by 6 apples, a tear came to Susan's knee. After all this time, the quest was finally over. And then, the apples promptly devoured Susan. The moral of the story: be careful what you watch for. It's silly, it doesn't make any real sense, but Mad Libs usually don't. The point here is bringing together all of our ideas of functions, creating a program that has multiple functions. In this case, we have our main function and then 3 others. Collecting information from the user and then outputting that information to them. So hopefully you were able to follow along. Hopefully you're able to compile this program yourself and run it. And thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, just give me an email. Thanks.